Okay then, it's time for the return of the Overwatch League for the June Joust. We've had the main melee last month, and that was rather surprising to some extent, with some teams not making it as far as we expected, and some teams doing much better than we could have anticipated. But in the June Joust, things change up, because, well, we have a few new signings in the league, we have a new hero pool, we have different fixtures, some teams will be taking each other on for the first time this season, and that means we could see things that could be a lot different than what we saw last month. But it all starts this week with week 6. It is week 6, it's not week 5, because week 5 was a bye week, where no one played. It was the week off last week. Week 4 was the tournament week. So week 6 is where we start June Joust. And this is where things get interesting, mainly because of the hero pool. And it will give us a very big indication on how diverse each team is at being able to adapt to what they're thrown at them. Because, you know, there's no Reinhardt, there's no Sombra, there's no Tracer, there's no Zenyatta. So this is going to mean some substantial changes for some teams. However, some teams will be just like, bring it on. We'll be fine with that. Because they're fine with changing things up. So, this week we are going to see quite a few fixtures. We're going to see the EU teams and such. We are not going to see our main melee champions Dallas. They will be waiting until next week. That is unfortunate, but Dallas fans, bear with it. And also, keep in mind that gives them another week to settle in Pine, which I'm sure they will be very grateful for. Also, Houston Outlaws have picked up another main tank, Dreamer. This is very interesting. Django has done very well for the Houston Outlaws, so it's surprising to see them pick up Dreamer as well. Not sure where they're going to go with that one, not going to lie. We also still have a very weird coaching situation at the Guangzhou Charge that still hasn't been cleared up. We have new coaching at the Hangzhou Spark, we already knew about that, and both those teams will be in action this week alongside the Houston Outlaws as well, who will also be in action. We will be interested to see if they do end up playing Dreamer, or whether he's going to be a pure backup to Django, which is what people's expectations would be off the bat, I would be sure. But Dreamer was not bad at the Valiant last season. So, in this week, we will start off on Friday, May the 22nd. Yes, that is today, tomorrow. Okay, fine. I'm recording this on the day it was released, and that's really odd for me. Anyway, Friday, May the 22nd, 21st, we will see at 8 PM BST, Paris Eternal taking on the Toronto Defiant. That will be somewhere around 3 PM BST, EST in America. EST. Sorry, I don't know what's going on today. Anyway, Paris, Toronto. This should be a meta that favours Toronto, because I'm expecting to think things to move much more towards dive, and that should be Toronto's forte, and it should be completely out of Paris's. There's no Reinhardt, so that really hurts Paris here. Like, really hurts Paris. Dan had not looked good already, but now his arguably best hero is out of the pool. It's only looking more rough. So, I still think Paris are going to be fighters, though. So, I predicted this as a 3-1 for Toronto Defiant. Toronto should get the win, and in this meta especially, Toronto should make this very one-sided. It should be a 3-0, but I don't believe Toronto Defiant will get a 3-0, simply because I don't believe in Toronto Defiant sweeping teams, because I think they're just a team that, always ever so slightly lets you down. I don't know why, it's just Toronto Defiant things. Moving on after that, 9:30 PM BST or around 4:30 EST, it will be London Spitfire taking on the Florida Mayhem. So Florida Mayhem did very well during the main melee, actually exceeding expectations, and excelled on dive. And, well, London finished bottom of the West last month, and to be quite honest, I don't expect anything less this month. London Spitfire are still waiting for Sparker to become eligible. Until then, they have to cope with hybrid on the hit scan, and that hasn't been working. London have been overly aggressive. They've looked really not great. And Florida Mayhem have looked great, to be quite honest. And now they're going into a method that should favour them with OG on the Winston, etc. It should be easy pickings for the Florida Mayhem here. I'm expecting a 3-0 for the Mayhem. And if there's anything less, then I'm starting to think, come on, pick it up, Mayhem. But there is scope for London to take a map. It's just in this meta of all things, I don't expect it. London last month could have run Brawl against Mayhem and caught them off guard because Mayhem's Brawl was not great, especially during the regular part of last month. But this month I don't expect it. So, moving over to the East region, we go on to our Saturday game. So Saturday, May the 22nd at 10 AM BST, so that's 5 AM EST I believe. We have the Electric Boogaloo returning for 2.0 I should say. So, Guangzhou Charge taking on the Hangzhou Spark. With Guangzhou Charge's very weird coaching situation right now, Hangzhou Spark's rejuvenation last month. Also, no Ash Band, no McCree Band, Dive looking good. Hangzhou Spark should be in for a bumper month. I'm expecting Hangzhou Spark to be in for a bumper month. So, I am going for a 3-1 victory for Hangzhou Spark, but I think it could be a sweep as well. I do not expect Guangzhou Charge to get much from this match. I'm not going to lie. I do think Hangzhou Spark should have plenty of resources to see out a really good victory here. After that, 11:30 AM BST, we see the Shanghai Dragons take on the Chengdu Hunters. Last time around, this was a 3-0 for the Chengdu Hunters. Chengdu Hunters, however, did falter quite heavily in the May Melee finals. I think Chengdu Hunters will start to lose traction, in all honesty. And now that Rush pretty much has been taken out of the hero pool, you haven't got the weirdness in the meta. So I think when you put Shanghai's exceptional play from the May Melee up against Chengdu Hunters, I think Shanghai are now going to start outdoing them. Which, we have to remember, Shanghai Dragons versus Chengdu was in the first week of the season. And that always tends to be a really erroneous week. So, I'm going for a 3-1 victory for the Shanghai Dragons. It could be 3-2, but I still think the Shanghai Dragons are going to get the win over Chengdu this time around. I think Shanghai have learnt their lesson, and they won't let it happen again. After this, we have New York Excelsior taking on the Philadelphia Fusion at around 1 PM BST. This should be easy pickings for Philly. This should be a 3-0. New York, they are a up-and-coming team, but they have nowhere near the quality to compete with the Philadelphia Fusion, especially, I mean, Philly have got a little bit of an issue this month because they've got their ace up their sleeve sort of taking out of them in terms of the rush comp. They were by far the best rush team in the East because, well, the Asia region just doesn't like playing rush. It never has done. It's a place that much rather would go to a ball meta or a Winston meta, much divey meta. So that is going to be an issue for Philly down the road, but it's not going to be an issue against Excelsior because the Philly dive or the Philly double bubble, anything Philly run should be better than what Excelsior can pull out. Excelsior could surprise and take a map off them, but I don't see much more than that. But I have predicted a 3-0 for Fusion. So, moving back to the West region, also there will be at 5:30 PM BST an encore for that Philly Fusion Excelsior match. Don't miss that if you want to keep up to date with those tokens. But on the Saturday later on, 8 PM BST, we will see the Paris Eternal take on the Washington Justice. So, things don't get any better for Paris. Again, this should be a meta where Washington excel. Mag on Winston. It should be fantastic for Washington. If we go heavy dive and you see Fury back on Diva, that's going to be even better for them. So this should be a meta where Washington excel, especially because I'm expecting more long range hit scan, which is going to be great for Jerry and Decay. Paris Eternal, this is, I mean, they could take a map because Paris Eternal are a team to take maps for some reason off of some of the bigger teams, but I have predicted a 3-0 for Washington because I just think Washington are going to be too good. They did let us down at the May Melee. We cannot we can't gloss over that. They did not impress as much as we thought they would, Washington Justice, but I still think they're going to have way too much for this Paris Eternal team. Way too much. After that, 9:30 PM BST, we got there in the end, 4:30 in EST, we see the return of the Houston Outlaws taking on the Atlanta Reign. We haven't seen the Houston Outlaws in a little while. They didn't end up making it to the May Melee Grand Finals because of the Dallas Fuel, nonetheless, but they were taking on the Atlanta Reign. Atlanta Reign, the gatekeepers between the bottom half and the top half of the league. They can sweep teams in the bottom half, they can just crumble against the bigger teams, or take them close but never get anything. This, I think, will be closer, in all honesty. I don't think Houston Outlaws... I was about to say I don't think Houston Outlaws are going to be as good as they were. I disagree with that. I think other teams are now catching the Houston Outlaws rather than them actually getting worse. And it's now on the Houston Outlaws to show another level of play. And it's going to be interesting to see if that happens. Houston Outlaws, they kind of got caught out towards the end of the May Melee. And that's why they didn't make it. Now we have to see if they bounce back, get a nice clean run in the June Joust, and then go into the June Joust knockouts. I would expect Houston still to be a great team though, so I'm expecting a 3-1 for Houston Outlaws. They should have too much quality for the Atlanta Reign, that's for sure, but Atlanta Reign are a tricky team because they can just come out of nowhere and just get results. It's weird like that, but yeah. So, moving on after that, final one for the Saturday, we will see Toronto Defiant taking on Boston Uprising at 11 PM BST. So, Boston Uprising, they are not a bad mechanical team. We don't know whether Gablesi is going to be available yet for the Boston Uprising, so that's a big factor in this. But they're not a bad mechanical team, they're not a bad team of players. I don't like the coaching setup at the Boston Uprising. I don't think it works. And Boston did not look that great last month. They looked okay. They did not look that great. Toronto Defiant did look better than them. However, I think Boston have the capability to make this close. And if they have Gablesi available and have got their act together, they can beat the Defiant. But I don't think they will. I am predicting a Toronto Defiant 3-1 victory over the Boston Uprising. And I think that's pretty sensible in the current sort of state right now to predict that. Boston Uprising could make it closer, but we have to remember that this is a team that got taken to 5 maps by London Spitfire last month. So that's also not great. And it'll be interesting to see just if Boston Uprising have improved any between the May Melee and now. That's what we need to see. That little incremental improvements is what we need to see from Boston. And it'll be interesting to see if that comes out. Toronto, though, this is where you need to step up. 3-1, 3-0. This is where we need... This week, if you want to be one of the best teams in the June Joust, in the dive meta, you need to 3-0 the pair of these teams. If you don't, then question marks. Because you want to be a good team. A good team will sweep these teams. Simple as that. Or get a fairly easy victory anyway. Moving on, back to the East region, we will see the rematch of the end of the regular part of the main melee. So Shanghai Dragons take on the Hangzhou Spark. This will be at 10 AM BST, Sunday, May the 23rd. So, I think this is going to be quite close. I think this is going to be closer than the Dragons Hunters match. Simply because I believe the Hangzhou Spark are going to continue their bounce back. Hangzhou Spark almost got the win over Shanghai at the end of the May Melee, and I think they will almost get the win again, but I don't think they will get the win. I think it'll be a 3-2 for the Shanghai Dragons. I think this is possibly the best match of the weekend though. I think this is going to be an incredibly interesting match, just to see quite how well Hangzhou have improved. And if they've improved any on what the Shanghai Dragons produced against them in the final week of May Melee, then they could beat the Dragons. I am not ruling out a Shanghai Dragons loss here. But I still think they're going to have a little bit too much clutch for the Spark. And that's why I've put the Dragons coming out ahead. And just after that, we will be seeing the New York Excelsior take on the Guangzhou Charge, 11:30 AM. This, again, weird situation at the Guangzhou Charge with its coaching right now. So that's where the New York Excelsior basically smell blood and they take it. So I think this will be a 3-1 for Excelsior. I think Charge will pick up a map simply because you have the erroneous maps like Control, which can really throw teams for a loop. But New York Excelsior should have too much for the Guangzhou Charge. I would have predicted it this way last month though, even with the Guangzhou Charge's original coaching staff. So Excelsior are definitely a top bottom half to middle of the league team in the East. And it'll be interesting to see. it would be great to see all of these teams go up against each other, because I think Excelsior would actually be middle of the league overall. But they haven't got teams like the London Spitfire and the Atlanta Reign and Paris Eternal to go up against. They've only got the Valiant, really, that are just sweep-worthy. Maybe the Charge as well. And then they start going into some real, like, tough opponents. So, yeah, that's kind of rough on the Excelsior in their region. But again, they elect to play in the East. So, they, you take it, right? After that, we have at 1 p.m. BST, I should say, Philadelphia Fusion taking on the Chengdu Hunters. This, again, was easy pickings for Philadelphia Fusion last month. This is the only team that beat Chengdu Hunters in the regular part of last month, and I expect them to do so again. I think Chengdu Hunters will take an erroneous map, but I think it'll be a 3-1 for Philadelphia Fusion. I think in the regular season, or I say the regular season, it's kind of weird this season, but in the qualification matches leading into a tournament, Philly will always have the best results. I really do think that in the East region they will always have the best results, probably better than Shanghai. But when it comes to the actual knockouts, the playoffs, I think there is the ability for people to clutch over them, like Shanghai did last month. So that's why I will back Philadelphia Fusion to beat teams like the Chengdu Hunters in the regular part of the season. But when it comes to knockouts, it takes a lot more thinking, and it takes a lot more, are Philly actually going to make this work? That's the issue. That's the issue with Philly Fusion. And it's always the thing you have in the back of your mind, thinking, are Philly really going to be able to clutch this out? But in the regular season, they should be fine. They should be fine. Anyway, last day of fixtures, 3 more to go through. 8 p.m. BST on the Sunday, we'll see Atlanta Reign take on the London Spitfire. Now, I'm already questioning my own judgment on this. I'm not going to lie in my prediction for this. 3-2 for the Atlanta Reign. I know why I've predicted this. The reason I predicted this is because we are going into perhaps a dive meta, which wouldn't necessarily favour the Atlanta Reign. However, it also doesn't lend itself to London Spitfire either. However, I could see London Spitfire running Bull. And Hattie's Bull hasn't been that bad. Hattie's been bad, right? But it hasn't been that bad. Hattie has a history of playing Bull in the EU region before. And I think that's something that possibly London might use to their advantage during this month, while Reinhardt is banned. And it could work. I don't think it's going to get them wins, I think it's going to get them weird maps. And that's why I think it could throw the Atlanta Reign off guard. Atlanta Reign don't have the best of coaching, and so tend to take a little bit in the series to actually grasp hold of what the enemy are doing and sort of adapt to it. But yeah, London are not going to win this. I'd be incredibly surprised if London win this. And I think this is one of London's easiest matches in the June Joust, if not their easiest, so that's a rough one. Can't argue with that, that's a rough one for London. But I still think Atlanta Reign are going to win it. Straight after that, though, we have the Washington Justice taking on the Boston Uprising. Jerry going on to his own team. His old team, I should say. 9:30 p.m. BST. That one is on the Sunday. So, I've predicted Boston to take a map off the Washington Justice. The thing is, my logical mind says to me that if Boston can take a map off the Justice, then they can take 2 maps off of Toronto. But I don't think that's going to happen somehow. I don't think that's going to happen. I could even see this being a 3-0 for Washington. Whatever the thing, I expect a Washington Justice win. I'd be very surprised if it wasn't a Washington Justice win. They simply have too much quality. And the Boston Uprising right now are sort of relying on individual player skill, in my opinion, to get them through certain things. And when they come up against the likes of Washington Justice, San Francisco Shock, Houston Outlaws, Dallas Fuel, Florida Mayhem even, and perhaps even Toronto, that is where they become unstuck. Because that's where individual skill is not going to see you through the match. It is going to come down to teamwork and team play. And that is where these teams will excel and Boston will fall short. So I think it'll be a 3-1 for the Washington Justice. Simply because Control is, again, a map type in my opinion that relies more on individual plays, mechanical skill, stuff like that, and less on actual rotations and team positioning and things like that, which I think is where Boston will fall short of the other teams. But then we have a really interesting match, and this again is a rival against Shanghai for Hangzhou for one of the best matches of this weekend. This at 11 PM BST will be Florida Mayhem taking on the Houston Outlaws. So, oh boy, this is really difficult. This is really difficult. Houston Outlaws are a very good team. Django and Piggy have popped off, alongside their DPS obviously, and Juby and Crimzo have far outperformed what we expected of them. Florida Mayhem, however, grew into the May Melee and got better as it went along, to the point where they found themselves in Hawaii. And they did not look bad. They ran out of gas against the Shanghai Dragons, but they lasted a lot longer than the Chengdu Hunters did. So, I've predicted Florida Mayhem to get a 3-2 win over the Houston Outlaws. That might be a surprise to quite a few people. The reason I've done this is because of the hero pool. I think the hero pool ridiculously favours Florida Mayhem. And I think they now have the ability to put BQB on McCree, put Yaki on Echo, OG on the Winston, you can put Gargoyle on the Zarya or the Diva, and you will be Gucci. You will be fine. And if Florida Mayhem can maintain the level of play they were showing in the May Melee, especially the knockout part of it, I think they will have too much for Houston. Just on this meta though. If this had been in the May Melee meta, I would have predicted a Houston win. Because on the maps that favour Brawl or Rush, Houston would have come out on top, by far. By far. It's a 3-2 for me for Florida Mayhem, but it's the most difficult to call. It's the most difficult call to make this entire weekend, in my opinion. That match right there is going to be so interesting, and is going to be a big teller on quite how much impact the hero pool is going to have going into the rest of this month. We're not going to see San Francisco Shock this week, we're not going to see Dallas Fuel this week, amongst others like the Valiant as well. So we will see them coming up in the coming weeks as well. But those are my predictions for the West region and East region for week 1 of the May Melee, or week 6 of the league overall. We are going into a brand new meta, we are going into a brand new month, and we are going into a brand new set of fixtures. Make sure you do your pick'ems, because my goodness me, there's a way to make a statue if you get it right. And lead the leaderboard. I think I was like rank 59 in the world or something. I honestly can't remember now. But last month's predictions went pretty well, so let's keep an eye on that. Let's see how it goes. There is all sorts you can do to get in touch with me, obviously with socials, all linked in the video description as per usual. Twitter, give that a follow. Illusion Gaming socials, give them a follow. Join the Discord server, my Discord server, and the Illusion Gaming Discord server as well. And Twitch, I guess. I don't stream right now, so that's kind of a weird one. But I don't know, give it a follow anyway. It's really nice of you. Thank you very much for the support recently as well. I really, really appreciate it. And I am looking forward to getting into the June Joust. Check out the meta preview. If you didn't, that was the previous video on the channel. If you want to learn more about what meta we are going to be seeing in the coming days and weeks. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you'd like to give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.